بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله عز وجل وخير هدي هدي رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم Excuse me. وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We begin by calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, the Majestic, asking Him guidance, asking of Him guidance, protection, mercy, forgiveness, sustenance. And we ask Him Jalla wa Ala that He protect us from our capacity to sin as well as the consequences of our sinning. We believe that whomsoever Allah Rabbul Alameen guides, no one can prevent that person from Allah's guidance and no one can lead them astray thereafter. But whomsoever He does not grant guidance to because of His wisdom and justice, no one else can ever serve as a guide for those people. We bear witness to the testimony of faith, to the declaration of truth, that there is no God except for the one and only true God. Allah subhanahu, the creator of the universe, of heaven and earth, and of hell. And because He is one and has no partners, He should also be worshipped without partners. And we also declare that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah's peace, blessings, mercy, and all goodness be upon His final Prophet and Messenger Muhammad, His beautiful family, companions, and everyone who emulates Him in everything of belief, worship, and character, lifestyle, until the Day of Judgment. Allahumma ameen. The topic of what we're going to talk about today is a very taboo topic, especially among Muslims. Taboo meaning that it's one of those words that just hearing the word or a variation of the word with sex in it causes people to cringe and feel like lightning bolts are going to zap them from the sky, or that the earth is going to open up and swallow them up, and as though they are committing a most major sin. And it's very unfortunate that whatever the cultural circumstances are that have caused intimacy, love, sexuality to be so abused within Islam, because it should never be the case Islamically. And my whole function as Imam is to educate, and it's to lead by example, and it's to be accessible, and it is to show the beauty of Islam Not just at some theoretical, intellectual, academic level, but at the practical. And this topic of sexuality, if and when it is correctly understood, wallahi, we'll come to see that it is a gift and mercy from Allah Rabbul Alameen, and that it is in no way something that is disgusting, something that is vile, something that is gross, something that is sinful. But it can be that way if it's misunderstood or if it's abused. And so this is why knowledge is empowerment, or knowledge is enlightenment, and enlightenment is empowerment. So just as a disclaimer too, we're not going to teach you anything of sexual moves or practices or things of that sort. This is not a sex class. Okay? So if anybody's here for that, you can excuse yourselves now. But what we are going to focus on is to have a correct understanding, and through that perspective and attitude. And so if we look at this topic of sexuality, let's understand that it can simply be broken up in two categories. One, an unhealthy, incorrect, and sinful way. And that is the un-Islamic. And the other is a correct, healthy, Islamic way. And before we focus on the correct, healthy, rewarding, fruitful, significant Islamic way, I figure it would be important for us to have that to the end, so that hopefully, inshallah, we can end on a good note, but to also really build up the seriousness of the matter at hand, if and when Islam is not going to be the solution. And you may say, we know Islam's the solution. Knowing something is one thing, having certainty in here is another, and living it is what the objective should be. And what I'm going to be bringing forth here right now as we begin, and we're going to begin with the un-Islamic, which is the unhealthy, which is for the most part sinful, are statistics within America. And just in case somebody says, no, why aren't we focusing on the Muslim world and who knows what of stuff? Number one, we can't get this type of data in the Muslim world, because depending on what country a person may be in, they may even kill the mullah that decides to try to teach the people about halal and haram because he's, mentioning the word. They may decide to, who knows what of riots and craziness of things of that sort. But the focus is to really understand it from an American perspective. Why? Because here in America, where it is a land of freedom, and people can do what they want, sexual promiscuity is with that to show that just satisfying your basest needs and allowing for everything of pornography and everything of promiscuity and all of these things to happen, it's not in any way helping anyone. Rather, it is hurting the individual, the family, and society as a whole. And when that can be established, then we'll have to come to the conclusion to say that, well, if that's not the solution, then we need to become certain that what Islam gives us is the solution. And as Muslims who are 1% of the population in this country, we have an obligation to first and foremost within ourselves be convinced of what Allah has given us, that it is correct and it is best, and in doing so, to be devout in living in the most beautiful way these teachings, so that we can be ourselves guided and then be a source of guidance for others. So let's take a look at the un-Islamic, the unhealthy, the sinful. From the website Webroot, talking about internet pornography by the numbers and how it is a significant threat to society. You may say, why are you going to bring up pornography? Why do you begin with pornography? Understand that pornography in many ways is at the root of a lot of, if not the majority of what is happening out there. And I'm logically building it up to a crescendo, as you'll hopefully come to see. The societal costs of pornography are staggering. The financial cost of business productivity in the United States alone is an estimated $17 billion annually. But the human toll, particularly among our youth and in our families, is far greater. Now in America and in many of these Western countries, they mention the money part because they understand that if you really want to drive a message home, you hit a person where it hurts them the most, and it's money. In a very material setting and society, money is what everything is really about. And that's why you'll find that with regards to the government and the rules and the laws, fines are a major source of penalizing people when they break the law. And for the most part, it works, right? $17 billion a year. According to Patrick Fagan, PhD, psychologist and former Deputy Assistant Health and Human Services Secretary, two recent reports, one by the American Psychological Association on hypersexualized girls, and the other by the National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, on the pornographic content of phone texting among teenagers, makes clear that the digital revolution is being used by younger and younger children to dismantle the barriers that channel sexuality into family life. Pornography hurts adults, children, couples, families, and society. Among adolescents, pornography hinders the development of a healthy sexuality, and among adults, it distorts sexual attitudes and social realities. In families, pornography use leads to marital dissatisfaction, infidelity, separation, and divorce. So, distorting sexual attitudes and social realities, I mean, it should be clear. Hollywood is Hollywood. Bollywood is Bollywood. Lollywood is Lollywood. That's not real life. And if somebody is not going to be able to differentiate, and this is the sad part, because we may watch Hollywood, then Bollywood, then Follywood, then whatever else it is, and realize that's a movie. But when it comes to the pornography, that's not necessarily understood, and a person is interpreting that sort of stuff thinking that's what reality is. Well, imagine that you're watching X-Men, and then you look at yourself and you look at your spouse and you're thinking, why can't I have those superpowers? There's got to be something wrong with her or something wrong with me. And therefore, naturally, the marital dissatisfaction. Why? Well, why can't she bend and do like this or that? Why can't he be like this and that? Infidelity, meaning that, of course, it opens up the doors for people to then want to seek that satisfaction out or seek that fantasy out and other than what is correct, which of course leads to separation, divorce, and so on. Here are some of the most credible statistics available today on internet pornography. Note at the end of this article there are some links that you can further, and we'll mention some. General pornography statistics. Every second, about 30,000 users are watching pornography on the internet. This is just America. Every second, roughly 30,000 people. Every second, $3,000 is being spent on pornography and the internet. Talk about a lucrative business, huh? 40 million American people regularly visit porn sites. It's a huge percentage of the population. 35% of all internet downloads are related to pornography. 25% of all search engine queries are related to pornography, or about 68 million search queries a day. 1/3 of porn viewers are women. So who's the overwhelming perpetrator with regards to this? Men. Search engines get over 100,000 queries every day related to child pornography. So understand that this sickness of what Satan will lead people to, it doesn't just stop off with the clean stuff of, man seeking woman, woman seeking men. The perversion of the disease is something that spirals into all sorts of different things that today we still will, alhamdulillah, say are unethical, that are immoral, that are illegal. But who knows what tomorrow is going to bring, because we see that our sexual perversions, especially being within democratic countries and peoples, if you build up enough of a threshold, you can change those perceptions and laws, right? Because if you think about some of the things of sexual lifestyles, it was just a few decades ago that homosexual behavior was something that was considered to be a perversion and something that was immoral and something that was wrong and even illegal, a disease. 34% of internet users have experienced unwanted exposure to pornographic content through ads, pop-up ads, misdirected links, or emails. So imagine that. 1/3 of the population is not wanting to search out anything of pornography, but it is popping up, it is coming to them. Whether it be the pop-up, some banner, some advertisement, something in an email. I mean, I'm sure all of you have gotten an email from somebody who you recognize in the sender, right? And you click on it and it opens up and it happens to be somebody who hacked or spam. I don't know how that stuff works. But they've sent you something of this type of horrible content. 2.5 billion emails sent or received every day contain porn. 2.5 billion emails a day. Subhanallah. Every 39 minutes, a new pornography video is being created in the United States. That's even more than what Bollywood makes, right? They say that Bollywood is the most prolific movie producer in the world. So this blows even Bollywood out of the water. Every 39 minutes. That's like literally make a movie without editing, put it up there, start another one. And about 200,000 Americans are porn addicts. And that's what they know. Because how many people are going to come forward and seek the help? And it's like alcoholics and everything else of drug addicts. Most people are in denial. How about youth pornography stats? Let's get a bit more focused. Teenagers with frequent exposure to sexual content on TV have a substantially greater likelihood of teenage pregnancy, and the likelihood of teen pregnancy was twice as high when the quantity of sexual content exposure within the viewing episodes was high. Pornography viewing by teens disorients them during the development phase when they have to learn how to handle their sexuality and when they are most vulnerable to uncertainty about their sexual beliefs and moral values. What does that mean? It means that when we are not educating our adolescents, our children, we're not helping them to understand and have a healthy sense of self and sexuality. And as Muslims, we know we don't do this. In Muslims, very sad, menstruation is seen as something taboo and something despicable and something shameful, such that in most homes, when a woman or the girls or females in that home are on their cycle, they hide it such that the men in the house don't know. And even the younger girls in the house don't know why the mother or sisters are not fasting or are not praying. And they will lie and say stuff like, oh, we prayed already. Oh, I'm not hungry. Show me where in the Quran and Sunnah does menstruation become something shameful, something sinful, something taboo. When we are not focusing on in teaching, but yet there's going to be exposure. Imagine that the first exposure of what adolescents and teens are being exposed to is perversions. And among those perversions is relationships that go beyond the male and female gender, where they may now think about, maybe that is something that is normal and that is okay. You think you can just wash that stuff out of somebody's head? A significant relationship also exists among teens between frequent pornography use and feelings of loneliness, including major depression. And adolescents exposed to high levels of pornography have lower levels of sexual self-esteem. So naturally, there can be confusion. There's already hormones that are raging and their body is undergoing changes, and biological and emotional and who knows what of stuff. And now you go ahead and expose them to these things, especially if there's not going to be prevention and education and things of that sort. And from the men's side, there's going to certainly be exploitation. You're going to have that, and you're going to have much worse. Family marital pornography stats. According to National Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families in 2010, about 50% of families in the United States reported that pornography is a problem in their home. Pornography use increases the marital infidelity rate by more than 300%. What does that mean, marital infidelity? It means cheating. Husbands cheating on their wives, which is the majority of the issue, but also wives cheating on their husbands. By how much? 300%. 40% of sex addicts lose their spouses, 58% suffer considerable financial losses, and about a third lose their jobs. So in the same way that alcoholics and drug addicts, sex addicts also have a multitude of things that hurt them. The family breaking up because of where they're going. Financial losses, well, you can imagine, right? Because they're going to try to get that fix. They're going to try to seek out those fantasies. And then they lose their jobs. You know, part of the problem with these perversions is that it changes a person's altered state of what is real. And they see these fantasies, and then they interpret the world around them thinking that as though that's what everything is. And so we'll come to see about how this really affects in the sense of sexual abuse and things of that sort. How about social media, mobile phones, and sexting? This is from the website enough.org, and it is stats of social media making the internet safer for children and families. And this stuff, when I came across this, honestly, it's so shocking. Yani Allah save us. Say Ameen. 21% of teen Facebook users share their personal cell phone number. 25% of teen Facebook users share videos of themselves. 95% of teens use the internet. 1/3 of youth ages 11 to 17 have their own cell phones today. And it is expected that half will have them within the next couple years. By 2017, which is, you can tell this is already a little old, 250 million people are expected to be accessing mobile adult content from their phones or tablets, an increase of more than 30% from 2013. Subhanallah, 250 million, I mean, we're at what, 300 million, just a little over? On their mobile phones. Think about that. Why on their mobile phones and not on their desktops? You can hide it, right? 88% of the self-generated, sexually explicit online images and videos of young people their analysts encountered had been taken from their original location and uploaded onto other websites. What does that mean? In their homes, their bedrooms, their dorm rooms, their apartment. Oh, Allah al-Mustaan, the brother is telling us there are apps that can hide other apps. And there are always going to be people who want to make money and at the end they don't care how. Muslim and non-Muslim alike. Selling alcohol, drugs, pornography, making apps that are going to better allow for illegal and sinful things. You're always going to have that. According to a 2013 Childline poll of 500 children in the UK, listen to this one now, ages 13 to 18, 60% said they had been asked for explicit photos or videos of themselves. What does that mean? Let's finish up. 38% said they had created a sext. What is a sext? That means a text that has a picture or a video of something sexually explicit about themselves. Of these, 32% said they had sent it to someone they knew online only, not in real life. Stop for a second. 13 to 18 years old. 60% said they had been asked for. So understand that there are people that are purposefully, intentionally surfing cyberspace through social media, and if and when they come across a pretty face, and this is part of the dilemma that we have today. And I pray and ask Allah Azza wa Jal to really guide our daughters, to guide our sisters, to guide our women folk, who continuously keep putting up pictures and videos of themselves, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on whatever it is of Instagram and Snapchat and all of these other things, and have people that subscribe to them and follow them and show that they like them. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal guide them to stop this, to delete that stuff, and to end it. Ameen. Because what is a guy going to do? He's going to come across that pretty face, he's going to like, he's going to subscribe, he's going to send that text, he's going to send that communication, and if there's a bite from the other side, and this is where very sadly, Shaitan, with regards to women especially, and I'm not bashing on women, I'm just speaking about something of psychology. This love of attention. And for some reason, as though they don't exist if they're not told how beautiful they are. Therefore, they need to be told all the time how beautiful. And therefore, these social outlets are the prime means and vehicles by which they are going to be exploited. Why? Because they're taking these beautifully done up things where they've done their makeup so that their skin looks good, they've done their hair or their hijab, whether they're wearing Islamic clothing or not, and then they'll take these images or these videos and they're as cute as can be and ha 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 ha. And you have horny men that are going to be there sitting there saying, oh my, you look beautiful and you're this and you're that, and Then you realize it's a man on the other side. That's another catastrophe. Allah save us. But the response is then going to be there. And he's going to sit there and say, oh, you look so beautiful. Are there other pictures of you? And she sends another. What is he doing? These are players. You got to understand that there are people who know what the heck they're doing. Shaitan is like giving them all all the cheats. And they keep, and they're able to bistidraj, lure people in a way that they can then even blackmail them afterwards. Why? Because imagine that if this is something that our daughters, our sisters, our girls are doing from their bedroom, from their home, from their dorm room. Parents have no idea. Muslims, this is Muslims, forget about everybody else. But yet these folks who know, they're able to figure out where this person is located. They got their name and all sorts of stuff, etc. And if they wanted to, when they decided to blackmail the person, and in doing so, to cyberbully them, they're able to extort from them additional things. And if they do, then they have even more garbage to use against them. And it's this dark, horrible hole that nobody wants to get in. Let's continue. Of those who sent a sex, 20% said it had been shared with others, and 30% said they did not know if it was shared. 3 in 10 teens text more than 100 times a day. That's just regular texts. That's what the generation is. They don't want to talk, they want to just... Well, if we could understand that that's something that leads to, naturally, people engaging in sexual activity, with everything of sexuality being marketed and advertised, sex sells. Let's understand that. Sex sells. Especially if there's a pretty face and a beautiful body behind whatever it is that's being advertised, it grabs men's attention. Nothing will grab a man's attention like a beautiful woman. Nothing. But the stuff that they don't tell you about, and all that they advertise with sex, is the sexually transmitted diseases and infections. Let's take a second to understand something about that. What are these sexually transmitted diseases and infections? There are too many to go over them. But what I would say is this. Look up the definitions of what are gonorrhea. What is syphilis? What are genital warts? What is AIDS? What is chlamydia? What is, and what is, and what is, and what? And to stop yourself from going into the haram, look at some pictures. I know you're sitting there thinking, astaghfirullah, Sheikh, you're telling people to look at haram. I didn't say to look at haram. I'm telling you to look at the disease. Understand what some of those symptoms and what those diseases, when they are afflicting you, what happens. But here, look at some numbers. And this is from the Center for Disease Control. It's a fact sheet. Incidence, prevalence, and the cost of sexually transmitted infections in the United States. So this is a government agency. Annual new infections are 20 million, and this was from 2008. What does that mean? Every year, that means that there are 20 million new sexually transmitted diseases, infections that are taking place. Makes you wonder what's going on here, because 20 million, 20 million, 20 million. How many years does that take before you reach 300 million of our population in America? 15 years? Total infections based on 2008 are 110 million. Meaning in 2008, what the CDC was able to verify and state is that there are 110 million Americans that have contracted one or another of these sexually transmitted diseases and infections. That's a third of the population. But now, mind you, if you take, for example, 60 years and older and exclude them, and you take, 10 years and younger and exclude them, that's got to be at least half the population, if not more. What does that mean? It means that what you're not able to see right away and know is that those people have something, whether it be AIDS, whether it be syphilis, whether it be gonorrhea, whether it be this, whether it be that. And you want to know the sad and scary thing? And this is something that you do some internet research on it and you'll see that some of these folks, especially with regards to the serious life-threatening diseases like AIDS, even though it's illegal, if it's known and if it can be proven in court, that knowingly they will still go ahead and have sex with people. Why? Because there's this sense of, well, if somebody gave it to me and they didn't tell me and now my life is miserable and I'm going to die or who knows what, there's this sense of revenge and vengeance in spreading it to others. The total medical costs, $16 billion, and this was in 2010. What do you think? Staggering? Frightening?
That's like a marketing machine.
That's telling you that the sexual promiscuity marketing in America is very successful. If you want to measure it by the infections that are there, they're doing a great job. And if you look at the other statistics of what came before it, they're doing a fantastic job. But we're not understanding, and this is where, subhanAllah, in the same way of what we covered with alcohol, in drugs, of intoxicants as a whole, that the demise of a people always comes from within. And what we're saying is not because we want to hurt America or that we want America to go down. No, the opposite. We are teaching, and as Muslims, our job is to guide so that people can be saved, so that the country as a whole can be saved. But can we force anything? We can't force anything. And this is why ultimately you have the rise and fall of nations, where people get to a point, and we read through the Quran, where they reach a zenith and they feel like who's stronger than us and who's more powerful than us and we have everything. And they don't realize that the lifestyle choices of what they're making, how that's infecting and impacting them as the individual, their health, their mental health, their physical health, their social health, their academic health, the workforce health, you name it. But then there's also another aspect of what has to be taken into consideration. It is that you now have this funneling into sexual violence, sexual assaults. And if you take a look at the stuff of what's mentioned, it's crazy. I'm going to touch just a little bit on this. And this is through EndSexualViolenceECT.org. And it's about sexual assault stats and figures. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. 25% of women 1/6 of men. And it's crazy because, I had seen on Google News just the other day about how within the American military, women are getting raped, but even men are getting raped by other men. There was something in there about a particular soldier from the Navy, of how he was raped by, when he came in as a new person, by whoever it was of seniors. And in the past, they could not even communicate that in a healthy, effective way to whoever it was so that it would be addressed. And because of the psychological impact, and Allah save us, such that nobody ever gets raped, Allahumma ameen, or molested, Allahumma ameen. But they were so messed up and affected by it that the military wasn't even giving them an honorable discharge. It is only now that the military is giving them honorable discharges because of the suffering of what they've gone through. Well, where's this coming from? Again, these unhealthy, un-Islamic things, there's going to be a cost to them. There's going to be a cost to them, and as we heard from the specialists of what were quoted, it distorts their perceptions of reality. When you're going to have all sorts of fake, made-up, fantasized scenarios, the doctor's office, the classroom, the house of worship, incest in the family, superiors to inferiors, whatever it may be. One in 6 women and 1 in 33 men will experience attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. In 8 out of 10 rape cases, the victim knows the perpetrator. And that's scary. That is very scary. 1 in every 7 victims of sexual assault is under the age of 6. And that is so scary. And 1 in 4 victims of sexual assault under the age of 12 is a boy. And what we've recently come to see through the whole fiasco within the Catholic Church should be an eye-opener, not just to the world, but also to Muslims, because it doesn't mean that that's something that Catholics have a monopoly on or that the Catholic Church has a monopoly on. This is telling us something about how we need to protect children, all our children, everyone's children, everywhere. And before I left from Chicago, in Chicagoland, there was the exposing of a very well-known imam, sheikh, scholar, mufti, whatever the different titles are, of adults, now adults, who are coming forward talking about how they were sexually molested and raped when they were younger. And this is where, as parents, we need to really fear Allah Azza wa Jal when it comes to the protection and safety of our kids. Among the things that these kids were saying is that the imam would go to their house and the parent would put them in the bedroom with the kids, and the parent would leave them alone, close the door, and then after the lesson, whatever was done, he would leave. Really? Do you do that? Astaghfirullah. That in the masjid, that it would be the adult with the younger kids, and it would be sealed off or closed off or private, and that there could be fondling from underneath those, little desks or tables or who knows what, while they're one-to-one type of a thing. There's no reason for privacy. No, absolutely not. Pardon me for saying this. I'm not accusing anybody, but when it comes to our children, we should be especially cautious and careful when it comes to an adult male, and when it comes to younger age kids. 13% of college women indicate that they have been forced to have sex in a dating situation. Somebody may say 13%, that's not a lot. You never want to be a victim, to be a number within that statistic. And part of the things that we want to pay attention to, and this is where again, the laws of cause and effect and what is rational and logical, these are things that critical thinking, unfortunately, that we have really neglected, we are so weak on. Even within schools, unfortunately, critical thinking, pardon me for saying that our Islamic schools, critical thinking is not really, it's not where it needs to be. We are still so traditional and old school, which is memorize, regurgitate verbatim. That's what we're really pleased with. The critical thinking of being able to make connections and infer things and so on and so forth, it's not there. And so if and when there's not going to be an understanding of what is a safe space, distance, locations, interactions, what do you think is going to happen? Imagine that when in dating situations, it is expected and it is normal, especially in all that is being put out there in movies and otherwise, to be physical, to even be under the influence of something at the same time, setting the mood and being private. And turning on the beast within the man, and woman not knowing what the beast within a man can be, or doesn't want to acknowledge what it is. And I'm not in any way saying that any of what a man does to rape a woman is permissible or condoning it. I am in no way doing that. But to put yourself in that situation, under the influence, dressed beautifully, attractively, touching, kissing, fondling, you name it, turning them on to a point where, and then expecting that they're going to have willpower and discipline and the fear of God and the fear of the law, that when the girl says no, that it means no. It's not a joke. Nearly 6 out of 10 sexual assaults occur in the victim's home. That's more than half. Or the home of a friend, relative, or a neighbor. And you think about that. How does it happen in their home or in the home of a friend, etc.? Wal mustan. Sexual assault is the violent crime that is least often reported to law enforcement officials. A 2000 study from the Bureau of Justice Statistics found that only 28% of victims report their sexual assault to the police. Imagine that. 1/3 of them are actually reporting it. Only about 2% of all sexual assault accusations reported to police turn out to be false. What means is that the overwhelming majority, that they're real, they're fact, they're true. This is the same rate of false reporting as other types of violent crime, meaning that the violent crime did take place. Why do you think that the other 60% don't report it? Psychologically what? The psychological aspect of what we talked about earlier. What else?
Most of the attackers are the family members.
A lot of the times the attackers can be family members, fear, shame. Why would there be shame? Because of the cultures. It's not important. But imagine now that these are Muslim girls we're talking about too. And she knows she's not supposed to be dating. She knows she's not supposed to be wherever she's at. She knows she's not supposed to have over whoever she has over. She knows she's not supposed to have drunk what she drank. She knows she's not supposed to have smoked or done what she did. And this ends up happening. Do you really expect her that she's going to be able to come forward and tell her parents what happened such that they go to the police? Think about that. Listen, Shaitan is so clever. If you have a bachelor's degree, he's got a master's. If you have a master's, he has a PhD. If you have a PhD, he has postdoctorals that you can't compete with. He knows how to work you, to take you step by step such that he ruins you. And after he's ruined you, he'll then use that against you to further destroy you. He'll be the same person to say, you fool, you idiot, you this, you that. What's wrong with you? Well, he was the same person who was telling you step by step, go, 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 go. In 30% of rapes, the offender used a weapon. So imagine in the other 70%, there's not even a weapon that's being used. What does that mean? It means that sadly, our women, or women as a whole, they don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to defend themselves. They freeze up. They fall to the ground. They panic. And subhanAllah, we recently held here at IANT a program that was offered to us through the Richardson Police Department by their female officer, and I forget her name, so if there anyone from the RPD is listening to this, Officer Evans, thank you. A self-defense class for women to help them to learn, to understand, theoretically as well as in application, these different dynamics so that they can protect themselves. And it was such an amazing class that the few sisters who took it were working on the details of being able to offer it at a larger scale. Why? So that something like this never happens, that they are going to be as empowered as possible to prevent it from ever happening. And listen to this, among developmentally disabled adults, up to 83% of females and 32% of males are victims of sexual violence. And that's really sad. Meaning that these criminals, these whatever you want to call them. I could think of a whole number of synonyms right now, but I'm not going to go there. That they don't just stop at whatever it may be they're going to go to those that are even disabled, mentally, physically, and they're going to take advantage of them. 83% of these females are being, unfortunately, sexually assaulted. And that's an eye-opener, it should be. If you never knew this, pay attention. Because Shaitan has no limits, and this is something we should be clear on. He has no limits. There's no off-limits because it's a child. There's no off-limits because the person is physically handicapped or mentally impaired. There's no limits for him, period. Not that it's an animal, nothing. In a study of elderly female sexual abuse victims, 81% of abuse was perpetrated by the victim's primary caregiver. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. 78% was perpetrated by family members, of whom 39% were sons. Now that's... I don't know about you, I'm being very honest. Like, these statistics make me sick. It's unbearable for me. It's So you're probably saying, well, why are you continuing for? Look, most of us live in bubbles. Especially Muslims, our mentality is isolation. And we think that if we can put everyone within this beautiful bubble, that everything is solved. That ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is strength for those who can abuse you because you're ignorant. Knowledge is strength for those who are enlightened and powered by it. We need to be not ignorant, but we need to be enlightened. Each year, an estimated 25,000 American women will become pregnant following an act of sexual violence. Sexual assault is often motivated by hostility, power, and control. Sexual assaults are not motivated by sexual desire. Humans are capable of controlling how they choose to act on or express sexual urges. Sexual offenders are ordinary and normal individuals who come from all educational, occupational, racial, and cultural backgrounds. People who commit sexual assaults are not obviously creepy, abnormal perverts, or people who could be easily identified and avoided. And this is something we have to pay attention to. And for whoever I hope may be listening, etc., or those of us that are present, or whether it be through cyberspace or whatever, it's not like you're going to be able to just look at the person and say, oh, there they go, pervert. Oh, there they go, child molester. Oh, there they go, whatever the case is. And what that means is, because you can't tell, it's not to go back within that bubble, but it's to understand how we need to protect ourselves. We need to teach our families. And I even wonder with regards to that, how many of us even teach, for example, our children, and we're concluding these horrible stats, how many of us even teach our children what is appropriate for them to show to anyone other, for example, than like their mother or whatever the case is? Right? How many of us teach them what is inappropriate of physical touch? If you don't teach them, how are they going to know what is acceptable from what is unacceptable? Right? So if all of that is the sicknesses, as well as some of those costs to the individual, to family, to society, to health, to economy, to crime, and I would hope that these things should be convincing. But the problem is, you have to literally become like private investigator to find this stuff online, because this is not what is being taught, this is not what is being advertised, this is not what is being educated within society at large. So let's go to the other half, which I'm looking much more forward to, and I hope that you will also. The correct, the healthy, the rewarding Islamic aspect and understanding and application of Islamic sexuality. What is Allah Azza wa Jall's divine purpose with regards to this? Because we have to understand that in Islam, Allah Jalla wa Ala included this in it. It's not that He left this out or that it was unanswered, unaddressed. Simply put, let's be clear that the relationship is one of husband and wife, and it is a relationship that is an act of worship, and it began with Adam and Hawa, or Eve, and it was Allah Azza wa Jal's decree, it was His ordainment, His command, that would be and should be the case in the teaching for humanity until the day that He inherits the earth and all that are on it. Allah Rabbul Alameen says in the Quran, يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. O humanity. He doesn't say, oh Muslims, He says, oh humanity. He's addressing everyone. Be mindful of your Lord who created you from one being, Adam alayhi salam, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, and created from him his mate, his spouse, his partner, his couple, Hawa or Eve alayhi salam, and dispersed from both of them so many men and women. It is through Adam and Eve that the human population has come about, and in that we believe that Allah Azza wa Jal had a finite beginning for human beings, that we did not evolve from whatever it is that was our precursor of XYZ, going back to the amoeba, or whatever that single-celled thing was. Now, if somebody wants to believe that about themselves, they're more than welcome to believe that about themselves. But as far as what I believe and what Allah teaches me is that He created me in the most beautiful form of what we are as human beings. But if somebody wants to believe that they are animal in the sense of having come from monkeys and other things of that sort, if the shoe fits it, let them wear it. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُم مِّن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلَكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنثَى وَلَا تَضَعُ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِهِ وَمَا يُعَمَّرُ مِن مُّعَمَّرٍ وَلَا يُنقَصُ مِنْ عُمُرِهِ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. And Allah created you from dust, talking about how He originally created Adam alayhi salatu wasalam from the earth, from the elements of this earth, then from a sperm drop, or from those fluids that are combined of the man and the woman, the worldly existence. And then He made you mates, male and female, to come together as spouses, as partners, as husband and wife. And no female conceives, nor does she give birth except with His knowledge. And no aged person is granted life, nor is their lifespan lessened, but that it is in a register. Indeed, all of that is easy for Allah. So if we can understand that this is the default, then we need to understand that this default is a lifestyle for us by which and how we worship Allah Rabbul Alameen. And we have to understand that if we want Allah Azza wa Jal to accept anything of our worship, it must fulfill two conditions. Both of them, not one or the other, but both. Al-Ikhlas is the first thing, that we need to ensure that what we are doing of worship, that we are doing it sincerely for Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning that we do it because we believe in Him, we understand that this is correct in what He wants from us, and so we're also seeking to please Him in what we're doing. Secondly, that we are emulating the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in whatever it is. And we believe that as Muslims, whatever the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam showed for us and lived for us, that it was a most significant, it was a most meaningful, it was a most purpose-driven life. If we really want to have a most meaningful, significant, rewarding, happy life, He's our role model, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we need to be convinced of it. And this is why, when, for example, the other night when the Shaykh came by and was mentioning a statistic saying that only 25% of young adults today of Muslim background are identifying as being Muslim, it's not necessarily because Muslims have left Islam. It's because, unfortunately, we have taken Muslim as being a name, as being a culture. Not everybody who came to America as, quote, Muslim really knows and has chose to be Muslim. They are Muslim out of what? Out of convenience, because that's the environment that they came from. That's just a type of a lifestyle that they had. Not that they understood it and they adopted it because that was something that they believed in with conviction, and that they also sought to have a family life that was going to also impress these beautiful teachings within the family. So subhanAllah, look at when we understand that this is an act of worship, how beautiful. We have this hadith that's in Muslim, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, وَفِي بُضْعِ أَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةٌ. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and with your marital intimacy, and with the intimacy that takes place between spouses, there is sadaqah. Now understand, yes, typically the translation of the word sadaqah means charity. And if we want to look at that as a word and say charity, yes, the wife is being charitable to her husband because most of the time it's the husband who is, seeking and needs it more than at least the sexual aspect of it. But there's also the sadaqah of the husband to the wife in the sense of him also addressing what she has of needs, of attention, of affection, of words. Both of them are being charitable to each other by understanding what the other's needs are, and selflessly doing the best that they can to be charitable to the other, towards the other with regards to that. But if you look at the root letters, sadaqah, what does it mean? It means to be truthful. It means to also, in a sense, to affirm, at-tasdeeq, to believe, to acknowledge, right? That if and when a husband and wife understand Islamically that they are worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal in marriage and in the way that they're supposed to live together and meet each other's needs, they are showing that they truly believe in what we have been given of guidance, and that they are truthful in living it out in the way that they're interacting with each other and in the way that they're maintaining and nurturing the relationship with each other. But the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim, they said, Ya Rasulullah, ayati ahaduna shahwatahu wa yakunu lahu ajr? The Sahaba did not understand this. They asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of Allah, do you mean to tell us that one of us is going to fulfill their desires and that there will be a reward for them? In the same way that you mean if I drink water because I'm thirsty, that there's going to be a reward for me? That if I eat something because I'm hungry, that there's going to be reward in this for me? What did he say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He answered them saying, أَرَأَيْتُمْ لَوْ وَضَعَهَا فِي حَرَامٍ أَكَانَ عَلَيْهِ وِزْرٌ? Says, what about if he were to have fulfilled his desires in an unlawful way? Would it be sinful? They said, of course it would be sinful. He said, well, likewise, when they are fulfilling their desires in what is permissible, that it's not sinful, but rather it is what? It is an act of worship by which the person is rewarded. So this aspect of marriage, to understand that Allah Azza wa Jal created us, and He intentionally created us as male and female, and He intentionally created the male and female so that they can be a couple, that they can be partners to each other, that through marriage that they would be able to cohabitate in a way that is going to nurture each other's needs. We also come to see that the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ further reinforces that, acknowledging it, adding detail to it. Wherein the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَتَزَوَّجُ النِّسَاءِ فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. In the hadith that's in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, he said, and I marry women. So whoever desires other than my way is not from me. And so in that, there are two things that are being mentioned. One is zawaj, marriage. That the need it has to be met through marriage. It cannot be met through anything outside of marriage. So, extramarital types of relationships, no. Or a relationship outside of marriage, no. Regardless of whether it is heterosexual, homosexual, or anything else. The only thing is marriage, husband and wife. And if you care about Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this is something that for people of faith, for us as Muslims, if we are not going to be living with our faith and living our faith out in our lives, then yeah, go ahead and include yourself within the category of those who believe that they have descended from apes and things of that sort. Because then what is there really to differentiate us from everything else of what's out there? Because in the animal world, yeah, they pair up. They have children. They may protect and provide and who knows what of stuff. But honestly, they're doing something even better than us in that case then, because what? They're behaving exactly as they were created to behave. But if we're not going to live up to what our faith has given us of guidance, then we are not living in the way that we were created to live and to behave. So when we're talking about marriage, let's understand that the details of this subject are too much to even cover within 3 hours. So what we're given today is hopefully something of substance that is going to help, but there's much more beyond this. There's a dilemma that we have if we understand that marriage is where we need to go, and part of that dilemma is that we're in a race against time. What are we racing against? What is the time that we're dealing with? Puberty. Why? Well, let's see. Because what is puberty? Puberty is synonymous with sexuality. Meaning that biologically, that time clock in the way that Allah Rabbul Alameen has endowed within us DNA, and those genes are going to express themselves at the time that He Jalla wa'ala has created and determined, the primary and secondary sexual organs and signs are going to manifest themselves. And it's not just that those organs develop and then the secondary characteristics of, who knows what of this or that. But what it also means is that leading up to that and from that point on, the sexual attraction and needs are going to be what? They're going to be full steam ahead. And we are foolish and silly, and this is where a huge mistake that Muslims make, is that we ignore this biological clock of puberty, and we do not give the proper education and training and focus of attention that is needed. And then we expect our sons, especially, but both our sons and daughters, that they are going to remain virtuous, righteous, chaste. Really? SubhanAllah, it's like tying somebody up and throwing them in the ocean and telling them, don't drown. Our job as parents is to raise righteous, mature, responsible adults by the time they reach puberty. You may say, no, that's impossible. That's impossible. Our children, by the time they're 13 to 14 girls, 11 to 14 girls, 13 to 16 boys, we can't do that by that time. But are we even making that an objective and a goal? Sadly, and these are some of those tangents, but they're tied in. that when we are not focusing on what parenting really should be and what our objectives need to be, we end up freestyling. We end up just thinking it's this, or maybe it's that, or just whatever my parents did that I'm going to do. Instead of understanding that these children are an amana, this trust, this responsibility from Allah Azza wa Jal to prepare them for success. Success with Allah Rabbul Alameen, as well as success with regards to the life of this world that they're going to have to face without you. And this is why it is not for us to micromanage their lives as much as it is to raise them to be righteous, to be responsible, to be mature, so that when you're not going to be there, that they're going to have that consistency and that continuity of making better choices and inshallah ta'ala correct choices for themselves. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. They are children that need boundaries, that need guidance, such that when they get to that point, it doesn't mean you right away have to marry them the moment they turn 11, 13, 16. No. Because of course, the cultural context in which we're living in, it matters. Right? Big difference 1400 years ago from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was normal for a person to marry right at puberty. 10 years old, 11 years old, 9 years old, 13 years old, whatever. But what we want to understand is that through educating them, through empowering them, that we are going to reduce the chances of them becoming a statistic with regards to all that preceded, and we are going to better endow them with what is going to increase their likelihood for success and happiness as adults in their families. So that issue of puberty, it should not be underestimated. And if a person says, oh, my kids have already grown up, it's too late. It's never too late for you to give attention to your children, regardless of how young or old they are. Of course, content appropriate, age appropriate, so that you can help them. Because if not, you're only going to hurt them and harm them. Among the things that need to be taught is hygiene. And this is what's referred to as khisalul fitra, that we are given from the Prophet ﷺ in Islam. Why? Because we need to instill those proper habits and traits within our children from as young an age as possible, so that as they get older, they maintain them, and it is for their wellness as well as their family to come. We have this hadith that's in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, that Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Al-fitratu khams, that the fitra, the innate natural predisposition that Allah Azza wa Jal has created us upon, that there are 5. Al-khitan, circumcision, and this is for men. Al-istihdad, the removing of pubic hair. Qassu sharib, the cleaning of the mustache with regards to the male, and that is by trimming it so that the lips are clearly seen and open, as well as reducing it. وَتَقْلِيمُ الْأَظْفَارِ, the trimming of fingernails, and this is for both men and women. وَنَطْفُ الْإِبْطِ, and the removing of, the plucking of underarm hair or armpits. In this other hadith that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha tells us, that's in Ibn Majah, and it is also authentic, she tells us that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, عَشْرٌ مِنَ الْفِطْرَةِ, that there are actually 10 things that are regarded from cleanliness and hygiene. قَصُّ الشَّارِبِ, again, with regards to the men, the mustache. إِعْفَاءُ اللِّحْيَةِ, the growing of the beard or facial hair. السِّوَاك, oral hygiene of what they had of that root, that stick, the toothstick, that they would clean their teeth and their gums and their tongue, that they would practice of oral hygiene. Al-istinshaq, bilma, of course, the rinsing and cleaning of the nose. وَقَصُّ الْأَظْفَارِ, again the trimming of fingernails. غَسْلُ الْبَرَاجِمِ, having clean fingers and hands. وَنَتْفُ الْإِبْطِ, the removal of the armpit hairs. حَلْقُ الْعَانَةِ, of the groin area. وَانْتِقَاصُ الْمَاءِ, يعني الاستنجاء, and also using water to clean oneself when using the bathroom. وقال زكريا قال مصعب نسيت العاشرة إلا أن تكون المضمضة, and the narrator of the hadith says, and I forgot the 10th except that it must be what Mus'ab said, that it is al-madmada, which is the rinsing of the mouth. So let's pause at each of these just a little bit. When we're looking at these qualities of what they had given, they're focusing on aspects of hygiene, and hygiene is also an aspect of what? Of beautification. The first of them is the mustache. Now it doesn't say the shaving of mustache, although this is a practice that Muslims seem to do, the shaving of the mustache. Women perhaps enjoy that better because it's nice and soft and smooth like their own lips, and it's not this coarse, rough, bristly upper lip that has, the mustache there. But the mustache to keep the mouth area open and clean. And this is where, as men, we need to understand this to be from the sunnah. Invest in one of those trimming kits so that the lips are clearly open and seen. The growing,
How about nose hairs?
nose hairs.
Well, of course, they're sticking out, but
So you bring up a good question. And we'll add that to some of the other stuff. No, that's good. But the raising of hands is even better, inshallah, but that's good. These do not mean these are the only things. Right? So we'll touch on that in just a second. The growing of the beard. The growing and maintaining and grooming of facial hair is an aspect of handsomeness in the man. And mashallah, I'm so happy to see that the beards and the facial hair are making a comeback within society here in America. And it's amazing to see how so many of these men who, even though they're not Muslim, that they're maintaining and grooming it from the Islamic standpoint, that sometimes it's even hard to tell, are they Muslim or not? Oral hygiene. The Prophet ﷺ, when it came to oral hygiene, we have a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim where he said, if it was not that I feared a burden on my ummah, I would command them to use the toothstick as they are making wudu for each salah. So imagine 5 times a day that you're going to take some type of a toothbrush or toothstick and you're going to clean your mouth out, and that includes your tongue. Why? So that the oral hygiene is going to be something that is not going to be repulsive. Honestly, sometimes I stand in prayer or I'm talking to somebody and the odors from the mouth are like so wicked. Subhanallah. I don't know whether they have some type of like root canal that's infected or something that's just like, woo! That shouldn't be the case. Back up, not a little bit, get to the other side. Think about this. We know that kissing is something that is good in Islam between husband and wife. But how can they enjoy each other, to be even near each other, to look at each other in the face if that's what the odors that are coming out of one or both of their mouths. And mind you that in the time of before, all they had was the siwak. All they had was that toothstick with water. Today, what do we have? MashaAllah, we have toothbrushes, we have toothpastes, we have floss to get in between the teeth, we have professionals that are dentists to go get cleanings every 6 months, we have tongue scrapers, we have mouth rinses and washes. We've got to pay attention to this. What else? Plucking the armpits. Trimming the finger. Oral hygiene, rinsing the nose. So rinsing the nose, why? Because depending on some of the climates that you're in, the nose plays a most important function of filtering out, especially if you use it correctly by breathing in your nose and out your mouth, or breathing just in general from your nose, but breathing in your nose and out your mouth, that's filtering out dust, it's filtering out pollen, insects. Okay, maybe not insects, right? We hope we don't get insects up the nose. But it is filtering out so many things. And as Muslims, when we are making wudu, we are what? We are rinsing out the nose. But part of what could also happen is sometimes in an embarrassing way, you don't know, right? You have stuff there. And a person who loves you is a person that's going to say something or, make some type of a gesture. Or a family member is going to sit there and say, oh, you got something in your nose or on your nose or whatever the case is. Why? Because you know what's so embarrassing? Is that you've been in public and you've met with and talked with who knows how many people, and then you get into the mirror and that's when you notice it's there and you're just like, oh my God, all those people and nobody I didn't know. So those nasal hairs, if they are huge and they are like roots coming out of your nostrils, yeah, man, get that taken care of. That is not sexy, it is not macho. Take care of yourself. Because part of what's also going to happen is that the more hair that you have, the greater the propensity for whatever it is of snot and things of that sort. The trimming of fingernails. Today, manicures and pedicures, especially for women, it's a big business. But we need to understand that the growing of fingernails is not Islamically considered to be something of beauty. You can maintain in the sense of make sure that they're clean and remove what there is of those, quote, skin cuticles or who knows what of stuff. But the growing of these long nails, and then of going and getting them decorated and painted with who knows what and tips on top and whatnot, not only is there the concern with regards to salah because your wudu, and I know that there's companies that have put out claims to say that, oh, this is breathable, water penetrable, etc. Honestly, I don't trust it. You can say, well, that's you, who are you? That's fine, yes, you can say that. I'm being honest. Until I can see the tests and have specialists, independent, that are going to be able to examine those tests and the results, I will not trust losing my salah to something of decoration. But if and when our women folk are going to be on their menstrual cycle for those days, that they decide they want to put nail polish on, that's fine. No problem, go ahead. I know that some folks will still sit there and say, but should they wear it in public and who knows what? Well, if you're from the background where it's shameful for family to even know that, their wife or the daughters or whatever the case is, or sisters, that they have their cycle, then naturally that's going to expose you. But Islamically, in the sense of in the home, etc., it's not a problem. But if they're going to, outside in public and show themselves off, then it becomes an issue. But if they're not necessarily going to be going ahead, hanging out, mixing with men and who knows what, it's a bit of a different issue. Yes? Which sheikh was that? Uh-huh. So a sister is saying that she had attended a Maghrib workshop by Sheikh Sa'ad Tasneem, and in it he had stated that he tested it? That he tested these different nail polishes and they all failed. Again, I could understand where somebody may still say, who was he? How is he going to correctly test it? I'm not a scientist. I don't know, maybe he's a scientist. How did he test it? Again, people could always have, play that devil's advocate and say, well, but I would still say that we should have independent, qualified testers verify this stuff, because too much is at stake to just give in. Washing of the knuckles and hands. Look, our hands have a lot that they tell us. And especially in the case of those who worked manual labor themselves, their hands would become dirty. And the dry skin and the cracks and crevices, it would become what? Dark. It may even become calloused and rough. Now understand, physical touch is something that is important. Clean hands make a difference. Okay, you're maybe not a mechanic, so you're not going to have greasy hands and things of that sort. Alhamdulillah. But regardless of what it is, we want to pay attention to ensure that our hands are clean, and that as best as possible that they are nice to the touch. Now we're not saying that men have to have feminine hands, right? Because if you're going to be doing things, mowing the lawn and who knows what of stuff, you're going to get some calluses. But you want to especially ensure that your hands are clean. Plucking the armpits. Now this specifically says plucking the armpit hairs. Plucking is far better than shaving. And it may be easier to pluck up here than it is to pluck down there, and the size of a person's body and who knows what. It may make a difference. It may be easier to pluck this because you could have somebody help you, but with regards to your groin area, it makes things a bit more complicated. But plucking is far better because epilation, it lasts much longer. The hairs that come back are finer. The removal of hair from these areas is much cleaner, and it's much more attractive. And what we're talking about here of hygiene, again, it's not just about cleanliness, but it's also about attraction, beauty. I mean, I know in some cultures, women have hairy underarms in the same way that men have hairy underarms. Islamically, neither men or women should have hairy underarms. Both are supposed to remove the hair of their armpits. The next thing that's mentioned is shaving the pubic region. Now it mentions shaving because why? Again, back in those days, they didn't have a lot of the stuff that we have today. But the removal of the hair in the pubic region is what the end result should be. These days we have razors, we have electrical devices that are like electric shavers. We have epilation devices that remove, we have hot wax types of things, there's Nair hair products, there's a lot of stuff. So for both men and women, that area down there of the groin, from the belly button on down to the knee area for the most part, but especially the groin area, that area should be hair-free. It should be clean. And again, epilation is best. Somebody may say, well, epilation hurts. It may hurt. But this is something where, again, especially when we're talking about getting into the best habits and practices, especially when we're going to talk about hygiene and cleanliness and attractiveness, husband and wife, let's understand there's reasons for this. There's reasons for this. And again, I'm going back to that aspect of this being a taboo issue. And I remember once having read something with regards to what was put of this manual, of an Islamic manual of sexual intimacy between husband and wife. And what I read, I could have swore that it was like an ultra-Orthodox form of Judaism that I was reading. No offense to our cousins of the Orthodox Jews or ultra-Orthodox Jews. What was the description? Absolute darkness, no lights, under covers, fully clothed, just a hole in the sheet. Thinking, is this for real? These are Muslims? Which Quran and Sunnah is teaching them that this is how a husband and wife are supposed to enjoy each other? And we'll get a little bit more into that. Who do you think the removal of this hair is for? I mean, come on, let's not be so naive. It is hygiene, yes. But in that hygiene of cleanliness, it's also attractive. Washing with water after using the bathroom. Jama'ah, that means that when we use the bathroom from a number 1 or number 2, whether it be for liquid or solid use, that water, and back in those days, water was the main thing they had. That water is something that we should use to make sure that we have cleaned ourselves and that we're squeaky clean. Some people may say, oh, disgusting, you have to touch with your hand or something. Take tissue at first and clean off what you have of the major stuff that's there, but follow through with water. But there's another thing too. Our crotch and our groin and our buttocks and stuff, we should not be stinking. Use some soap if you have to. Clean up so that this way you rinse down with the water that, you're not a walking odor. I mean, pardon me for saying it, but I'm being blunt. And the last thing what he mentions is al-madmada, which is again that rinsing of the mouth, which is another thing of course we do these for the ibadat of wudu, but in addition, that it is something of what we should follow and practice, such that after you have eaten, maybe you don't have the toothpick, you don't have a toothbrush, you don't have a floss, you don't have the ability, rinse your mouth out at least. Rinse your mouth out so you can get rid of whatever those different things are that are sticking to your teeth and to your gums and who knows what of stuff that you don't recognize, and you're talking to people and you're smiling. And then you look in the mirror and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I look like that. Tawqitul fitra. Is there something of a time thingy for this? Listen to this. This hadith is in Muslim. Anas radiallahu anhu said, وَقَّتَ لَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ في قص الشارب وتقليم الأظفار وحلق العانة والنطف الإبط ألا نترك أكثر من 40 يوما وقال مرة أخرى 40 ليلة. He tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam set a time limit for us with regards to the trimming of the mustache, the trimming of fingernails, the removal of the armpit hair and the groin hair, that it should not exceed 40 days. So somebody may sit there and say, 40 days? That means I can let my nails grow for 40 days. I don't have to remove hair for 40 days. I can let my mustache grow for 40 days. Habibi, my brothers, my sisters, understand, 1400 years ago, if you were in that situation, even a month is a tremendous blessing with regards to something that is of these things specifically. Today, there is no reason why we cannot stay on top of these things as needed. But understand this too, with regards to cleanliness and hygiene, we know that for the men, at minimum, they are supposed to take a ghusl once a week on Friday for the Jumu'ah. But we know that if there's going to be sexual intimacy between husband and wife, that they need to take a complete bath. Now when you think about this, subhanAllah, Muslims were supposed to be like the cleanest, the best smelling, the most hygienic. Yani, mashallah, we should be like the next thing to angels. Especially today, if you add on top of all of these products that have been made available, it's not just water, but mashallah, you have good smelling soap, you have great smelling body wash, you have fantastic shampoos and conditioners, you have amazing deodorants and antiperspirants. In addition to all the perfumes and colognes, we, men and women, young and old alike, our hygiene should be such that we should be absolutely spectacular. But we're not doing this. And it hurts when our children will come to school and they're smelling, that adults will come to the masjid and they're smelling. Understand that every time we are not going to abide by a beautiful Islamic teaching, there's a repercussion, there's a cost to that. So what we learn, we need to put to practice. Here's a little intermission before we jump into the issue with regards to marriage, to talk a bit about what are some of the issues that are hurting our marriages. And for this, there's this blog, which is premarital advice in the way that I'm looking at it and using it with us. It is by Mr. Kelly M. Flanagan, who is a clinical psychologist, writer, blogger, and it's taking off of the Huffington Post, and it is the 9 most overlooked threats to a marriage. Right? And he begins by saying, I feel bad for marital communication because it gets blamed for everything. For generations and survey after survey, couples have rated marital communication as the #1 problem in marriage. It's not. Marital communication is getting a bad rap. It's like the kid who fights back on the playground. The kid who fights back, not the kid who starts the fight. The kid who fights back on the playground. The playground supervisors hear a commotion and turn their heads just in time to see his retaliation. He didn't cause the problem. He was reacting to the problem. But he's the one who gets caught, so he's sent off to the principal's office. Or in the case of marital communication, the therapist's office. I feel bad for marital communication because everyone gangs up on him, when the truth is, on the playground of marriage, he's just reacting to one of the other troublemakers who's starting the fight. So here are these 9 things. The first, we marry people because we like who they are. So these are very important, really. I mean, he hit it right on the head. And the advice that he's given, if we use it as premarital advice, it'll take us a long way. He says, people change. Plan on it. Don't marry someone because of who they are or who you want them to become. And I'll even say, or who you think you can change them into becoming. Marry them because of who they are determined to become, and then spend a lifetime joining them in their becoming as they join you in yours. Wallahi, this was such an epiphany for me to hear that. Number 2, marriage doesn't take away our loneliness. And this one is serious. To be alive is to be lonely. It's the human condition. Marriage doesn't change the human condition. It can't make us completely unlonely. And when it doesn't, we blame our partner for doing something wrong, or we go searching for companionship somewhere else. Marriage is intended to be a place where 2 humans share the experience of loneliness, and in the sharing, create moments in which the loneliness dissipates for a little while. And this is so serious. understand that what you go into with of beliefs and of perspectives and of attitudes, if and when they're wrong, they're going to impact everything else. And this is where I really have an issue with the amount of attention that Muslims are giving to the wedding and not to the marriage. Oh my God, the amount of money that is spent on the wedding. But how much money is spent on learning and preparing and really developing oneself for marriage? And then you'll have, whether it be through social media of different sorts, these beautifully nice little short statements, mimes or memes or whatever they're called, with a nice picture to them. And they'll make these bodacious statements. The person who loves you is the one who can see the pain behind your smile. The person who can this and that. The person who... What? You looking to marry like some superhuman being or something? What are you talking about? Where's the reality, the pragmatism of what a human being is? What this counselor is saying is golden. Number 3, shame baggage. Yes, we all carry it. We spend most of our adolescence and early adulthood trying to pretend our shame doesn't exist. So, when the person we love triggers it in us, we blame them for creating it. And then we demand they fix it. But the truth is they didn't create it and they can't fix it. Sometimes the best marital therapy is individual therapy, in which we work to heal our own shame so we can stop transferring it to the ones we love. And I want to say with regards to this, sex is shameful in the way that Muslims treating it as a taboo subject, that they are directly and indirectly communicating it to their children. And it is also a fear tactic that is being taught so that especially our daughters, they don't go ahead and lose their chastity and do things that are wrong. So it is vilified, it is shamed, it is... And then all of a sudden she gets married, and now she's expected to have a healthy understanding for it. Really? And there's been no proper education, no communication, not for her to understand herself, or even for the guy to understand himself and her, so that we have a healthy thing going on here. And sadly, there's such a double standard in Muslim culture, not Islam. In Muslims' culture, that the men are left like Ya'juj and Ma'juj to go wreak havoc on earth. And our daughters, our women folk, mashallah, angels from heaven. And now you have Ya'juj and Ma'juj marrying an angel. And he's literally almost raping her on their wedding night. And the trauma that she's facing and experiencing, filled with all of the shame and filth and disgust of what she's been told, you have a recipe for a marriage that is not going to at all be happy. Rather, it is going to be disastrous. Number 4, ego wins. We've all got one. We came by it honestly. Probably sometime around the 4th grade when kids started to be jerks to us. Maybe earlier in our family members were jerks first. The ego was a good thing. It kept us safe from the emotional slings and arrows. But now that we're grown up and married, the ego is a wall that separates. It's time for it to come down by practicing openness instead of defensiveness, forgiveness instead of vengeance, apology instead of blame, vulnerability instead of strength, grace instead of power. I mean, subhanallah. So powerful. So powerful. And the lack of emotional immaturity, it's not just ego, but it's that emotional immaturity, that what we're coming across is all of the bad stuff of the defensiveness, that vengeance, blame, conflict. Number 5, life is messy and marriage is life. So marriage is messy too. This is part of the big problem we have today with all of these fairy tales. And having most recently the British prince marry his American princess, it further puts those fairy tales within the heads of, some of our folks, where they want to have this fairy tale marriage and, wedding procession and who knows what of stuff, and think, oh yes, there is no thing like that except in fantasy. And I bet you if you were able to go in on the inside and see how Harry and whatever their different names are, you would see that they also argue, that they also have problems, that regardless of them being royalty and having billions of dollars and being life, it is life. Life is going to have its troubles no matter what. But when things stop working perfectly, we start blaming our partner for the snags. We add unnecessary mess to the already inescapable mess of life and love. We must stop pointing fingers and start intertwining them. And then we can walk into and through the mess of life together, blameless and shameless. Wallahi, this is also an aspect of emotional maturity. The first thing that people do is we want to blame the other person for whatever it is of how they're... I'm feeling a certain way. I have no idea what it is about something that triggered, and what do? I blame the other person. The arguments start, the accusations start. The bringing up of all these other negative emotions from before, all of that gets dumped on. And every time something happens, this whole process repeats itself several times a day, several days a week, weeks out of the months out of the year. Allahul Musta'an, nobody wants to live through hell. And Allahu Jalla wa Ala did not create the institution of marriage to be hell. He created it for the opposite purpose, for it to be for us a heaven on earth. Number 6, empathy is hard. By its very nature, empathy cannot happen simultaneously between two people. One partner must always go first, and there's no guarantee of reciprocation. It takes risk. It's a sacrifice. So most of us wait for our partner to go first, a lifelong empathy standoff. And when our partner actually does take the empathy plunge, it's almost always a belly flop. Do belly flops hurt? Anybody ever belly flop while diving into a pool of water? The truth is, the people we love are fallible human beings, and they will never be the perfect mirror we desire. Can we love them anyway? By taking the empathy plunge ourselves? This is something that really hurts. Because part of what there should be within that relationship is trust and safety. And being able to discuss and talk about what it is that a person is feeling, while at the same time trying to do your best to relate to the other person. But it requires a person having emotional maturity themselves before they can really try to have anything of that reciprocation or empathy for the other. And this is why we find that even though, subhanallah, we're doing a great job as far as academic education and careers, excellent, but the emotional maturity, it's really not there. That training, that education, that nurturing, it's not there. Or it is so weak. And you'll find that even though these people who are, mashallah, so well educated and so successful in whatever their education and careers may be, that at the smallest of things, they're like children throwing tantrums. We see it even in the masjid sometimes. Number 7, we care more about our children than about the one who helped us make them. Our kids should never be more important than our marriage, and they should never be less important. If they're more important, the little rascals will sense it and use it and drive wedges. If they're less important, they'll act out until they are given priority. Family is about the constant and ongoing work of finding the balance. And this here also addresses another one of the issues at hand. Muslims are taught that marriage is just for the purpose of having children. And when we think about marriage, it's about rules and responsibilities. And once the girl gets married, khalas, it's mother, and like there's nothing else about wife. Or that it's father and there's nothing else about husband. Understand that the relationship of husband and wife, it takes time to be nurtured, and it takes time for them to come together as strangers, to really know each other, to develop that love, that understanding, to nurture the relationship. And this is why the wife shouldn't become a mother on her first night of the wedding. Contraception is okay in Islam. Birth control is okay in Islam. The mistake that is made is when you have these folks who are strangers, not prepared for the different roles, and now all of a sudden, subhanAllah, children are thrown into the situation. And then shaitan plays with people's heads, tells the girl, you didn't have a life, you didn't get a chance to experience, to enjoy, you didn't this, you didn't that. But again, if we're not going to teach and we're not going to help them understand, subhanAllah, the hadith is in al-Bukhari and Muslim, that Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, كُنَّا نَعْزِلُ وَالْقُرْآنُ يَنزِلُ وَلَوْ كَانَ مَنْهِيًا عَنْهُ لَبَيَّنَهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. He says, we used to withdraw. That was the birth control method they used. And it's still a good birth control method. What does it mean to withdraw? It means to withdraw just before ejaculation. To not have the orgasm within the wife, so that it prevents the semen of what's being ejaculated from conceiving within her. He says we used to practice withdrawal while the Quran was still being revealed. And if it was something that was prohibited, it would have been cleared, it would have been made known, it would have been explained in the Quran. So he's telling us that this is something that's perfectly permitted. So there should be time. At least a year, at least. Especially when we're thinking about the dynamics today of what life and society and family and careers and all of this stuff are. People are not spending as much time together. There is so much that is competing for our quality time. You need at least a year minimum to spend with each other, to get to know each other, to invest in each other, because the relationship is most fragile at its beginning point. You need at least that year to invest in each other, that devotion and commitment to each other. And then when you're both ready, and I say that when you're both ready, because it would be a mistake on the guy's side if he thinks, oh no, I'm going to hurry up and get her pregnant because, that means, who knows XYZ of things that he may have been told or heard within his culture. If you don't hurry up and get her pregnant, then she's going to, who knows, wants to go out and stuff of that sort, and she's probably going to be a bad girl or whatever the case is. You want to get her pregnant so this way she stays home, etc., etc. Subhanallah. Understand, if somebody wants to do something bad, they're going to do it. But you would hope that you have in yourself the maturity that's needed, as well as the respect and everything else, to go about this the right way, such that you're not going to have these bad thoughts and allow for shaitan to put these bad thoughts in your mind with regards to your spouse. But when those children, that the two of you decide that you want to have them, that the happiness of what's going to be there between husband and wife is something that, the love of what's there between husband and wife is something that, inshallah azza wa jalla, is going to be that healthy, happy home that these kids are going to be brought up in. And what they should be seeing is not rules and responsibilities. What they should be seeing is a relationship. Because love is not rules and responsibilities. Have you ever seen any job description that says love? You can put as a job description cooking, cleaning. But affection, you can't put that in the job description. Respect, you can't put that in the job description. Those are things that are from a relationship, and when they are raised within that home where they see this beautiful relationship, they are going to also have that respect and that love and that consideration with each other and with their parents. Number 8, the hidden power struggle. Most conflict in marriage is at least in part a negotiation around the level of interconnectedness between lovers. Men usually want less, women usually want more. Yeah, that's correct. Men want less, women want more. Sometimes those roles are reversed. Regardless, when you read between the lines of most fights, this is the question you find. Who gets to decide how much distance to keep between us? If we don't ask that question explicitly, we'll fight about it implicitly forever. Power. And if we're not really listening to the words and what are also behind the words and the way that the argument is taking place, we won't recognize that it's really about power. The conflicts that take place about money, it's really about power. The conflicts that take place with regards to family, it's about power. The conflicts that take place with regards to the bedroom, it's about power. It really is. In its most basic core. Are some people, perhaps, whether it be nature or nurture, need to have more sense of control? Probably. But husband and wife, there should be transparency. There should be no such thing as secrets. So with regards to the money, it shouldn't be that if the wife doesn't work because she's taking care of the family, managing the home, and the husband is the money maker, that the wife has no idea what he's making, how he's spending it, things that I hear these types of things, this types of stuff. These are real situations. Why this need to control and to maintain secrecy and stuff? Why? Why is it sometimes that the wife feels she needs to be the one who's managing the money, and she's the one who gets the check, and she's the one who... Why with regards to family? That it's got to be what he decides and when he decides and how long he decides, or the opposite, that it's her. Nope, we're not going to go to your parents this Eid. Nope, they're not going to visit us this Eid. It'll be my parents. Or we're going to work out something where each Eid is going to alternate. Or no, you can't have your parents come visit, or you can't go visit your parents because... Or no, I don't want your mother visiting because, or you're, Because she tells me I have to spin it right, clockwise when I'm stirring the pot, and I want to stir it counterclockwise. Why do we make such a big deal? Number 9, and this is the last one. We don't know how to maintain interest in one thing or one person anymore. This is a true dilemma. We live in a world pulling our attention in a million different directions. The practice of meditation, which is attending to one thing and then returning our attention to it when we become distracted over and over again. Meditation is an essential art, or focusing is an essential art. When we are constantly encouraged to attend to the shiny surface of things and to move on when we get a little bored, making our life a meditation upon the person we love is a revolutionary act. And it is absolutely essential if any marriage is to survive and thrive. As a therapist, I can teach a couple how to communicate in an hour. It's not complicated. But dealing with the troublemakers who start the fight, well, that takes a lifetime. And yet, it's a lifetime that forms us into people who are becoming ever more loving versions of ourselves, who can bear the weight of loneliness, who have been released the weight of shame, who have traded in walls for bridges, who have embraced the mess of being alive, who risk empathy and forgive disappointments, who love everyone with equal fervor, who give and take and compromise, and who have dedicated themselves to a lifetime of presence and awareness and attentiveness, and that's a lifetime worth fighting for. What do you think? Good stuff, huh? So imagine now we're going into that direction of marriage with this preliminary understanding and preparation and training and education and reminders. And now we're all psyched up and we're getting ready, moving forward, thinking, yes, marriage, woohoo! And we read the ayah where Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling us, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. We need to understand and then to internalize what we have in Quran and Sunnah, so that we can then, when it comes to, and remind ourselves over and over again of these teachings, so that we can have and actualize what marriage is meant to be. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and from His miraculous signs is that He created for you, from yourselves, spouses, that you may find tranquility with them, and He placed between you love and mercy. Indeed, and that are a sign for people who give thought. Now this verse, just taken at face value, without ponderance, you may not necessarily get the most out of it. So that's why we're going to take a minute. Focus on what we can derive of benefits from this ayah. Allahu Rabbul Alameen is telling us so much within just this one ayah. He is setting the bar for us, telling us of what marriage is supposed to be. And He uses several words. One of them is the verb form لِتَسْكُنُوا. The root is second. When we understand that in the Arabic language, anybody wants to grab a chair, make yourselves comfortable. Those of you that are at home or any place else, feel free to recline on your lazy boys. Second, in the Arabic it is خِلَافُ الْإِضْطِرَابِ وَالْحَرَكَةِ. Second is the opposite of this sense of movement and kind of like a conflict. So what we understand, second, is several qualities, and of them is a sense of stability, sense of calm, tranquility, peace of mind, a sense of belonging, because your home, right, your dwelling place, it has many adjectives and qualities for you. That place that you look forward to, no place like home. You can't wait to get back home. Place that you belong, a place that you feel safe, a place that you can be as you are. Marriage is like that dwelling place. The home in marriage, with marriage, is supposed to fulfill and meet these needs. But here's the issue. If on your own you cannot have that, and you're expecting that with marriage the other person is going to make that happen, that's where the letdowns are going to be, and the complaints and the pointing of fingers and blaming, as was mentioned earlier. Allah Azza wa Jal says, هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن. They, the women, your wives, are clothing for you and you are clothing for them. What does that mean? What is Allah Azza wa Jal helping us to understand? Let me ask you, since I went through the first one as an example, let's make it a bit more interactive. Tell me, what do you understand from that? Huh? Protection. Okay? Beautification. Okay? Comfort. Covering. Huh? Closeness. Yeah. The Arabic, the root letters of labisa يدل على مخالطة ومداخلة. مخالطة ومداخلة أو مداخلة. مخالطة is this interaction, intermixtion, and مداخلة meaning becoming very personal, entering into things. What happens with clothing? Aren't you entering into your clothing? Aren't you going into them? Right? Don't think of it that you're putting them on top of you. You, in wearing your clothing, you are going into your clothing. And the process of getting dressed is not supposed to be a painful thing. It's not supposed to be something that is disliked. The clothing itself is also supposed to be comfortable, something that you're attracted to because it is beautiful. It is something that you further adorn yourself with. That clothing also identifies you. The association that's there. Of course, it also serves to cover, to protect. And when all of those things happen, it certainly adds and increases your self-worth, your self-image. Yani marriage, subhanAllah, husbands and wives, that example of what clothing is, I mean, it's intimate. Clothing is literally touching your bare skin. The relationship of all those adjectives should be there with the husband and wife in marriage. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, نِسَاؤُكُمْ حَرْثٌ لَكُمْ فَأْتُوا حَرْثَكُمْ أَنَّا شِئْتُمْ وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Your wives are your gardens. So enter your gardens as you want and prepare beforehand. And be mindful of Allah and know that you will certainly meet Him, and give glad tidings to the believers. How about this one? Give us what you understand from this analogy, this example that Allah Azza wa Jal is using. Anyone? Go ahead.
When you go to your wife, prepare yourself as if you are going to paradise or heaven, not to get in trouble.
MashaAllah, that's probably the most beautiful thing I've heard. When you're going to go to your wife, prepare yourself as though you're going to paradise, to a garden, that you're going to enjoy yourself. Very beautiful, yes. Oh, clapping for him. Yeah, that was good. What else? Don't do the stuff that's not allowed. Like homosexual stuff, okay?
Use it properly, don't abuse it.
Use it, don't abuse it.
Properly.
Use it properly, don't abuse it.
You have to take care of your gardens, you have to take care of the crops that it grows. You have to tend to it in the proper way so it stays that way. If it stays like a garden, then you want it to be vegetables.
Yeah, you have to care for it, water it, this, that, and so on and so forth. I mean, look, subhanallah. We almost always end up doing the opposite, which is that we don't nurture and care for what we have. We think that the grass is greener on the neighbor's lawn, instead of understanding that the grass is greener where it's cared for. That garden, if you look at it from so many different angles, number one, just looking at it should be a sign of comfort and beauty. Right? How many of you have like a garden in your backyards? Anybody? Nobody. Wow. Subhanallah. That's part of the problem, man. You better start gardening. You want to have healthy, happy marriages, you better start gardening from now. And learn some of those lessons of what it means to make sure you know how to cultivate and maintain this beautiful gift of what Allah has given that is going to nourish you in so many different ways. That garden, it's yours. There should be no issue with regards to Ali. There should be no issue with regards to your garden. And this is where the Arabic أَنَّا شِئْتُمْ, it has two meanings. كَيْفَ وَمَتَى, how and when. Meaning that you should be able to enter your garden whenever you want and how you'd like. And this is where that love, if we're talking about a relationship, the love between husband and wife should be such that they understand each other. Now maybe that husband, his appetite is such that he could have a whole cucumber, a whole tomato, a whole pepper, stir that together and have the whole bowl of salad just by himself because that's what his appetite is. But maybe his wife's appetite is that she'll have a few spoonfuls, a quarter of it, and she's full. The mistake is that she is going to expect the husband to restrict himself to her level and say, you're eating too much, you're expecting too much. Now I'm expecting the wives or the women to say, well, it's wrong. It's wrong for him to expect her to eat as much as him. Look, when we're talking here about what Allah Azza wa Jal is mentioning, it's not because Allah is looking to abuse the woman or the wife, or that He's unfair and He's biased against the women for the men. He's helping both men and women to understand, especially in this case, that the needs of the man, his appetites, are going to be more. And that the wife should not restrict his appetite such that in doing so, he's going to be hungry. And what's going to happen if he continuously is hungry at home and he's hungry when he leaves home? Shaitan's going to work on him. And this is what I'm saying, sisters, you want to make sure that not just in the physical sense that you overfeed your husband so that he doesn't think about eating out at restaurants and things of that sort, but you want to make sure that you are taking care of his needs such that Shaitan is not going to abuse him in his thoughts in a way that can possibly lead him to the pornography, lead him to what pornography is also going to lead to of haram. And where there's love in that relationship, there should be that consideration and understanding. But part of what that kayfa means, and this is something that we learn through the seerah, in the tafsir. In the tafsir of Ibn Kathir rahmatullahi alayhi and others. The Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim of Mecca, when they moved during the immigration to Medina, the men from the Meccans married some of the women from the Medinans. And a scenario became aware to them, something new that the Medinans didn't experience before. Now mind you, the Medinans had 3 big Jewish tribes that lived there. So they were very heavily influenced by many of the Jewish practices. Of those Jewish practices were the sexual practices. The Meccan men married this Medinan woman, and he wants to go ahead and enjoy the relationship of husband and wife intimately in the way that he was used to with their women in Mecca. Well, now the women in Medina, being influenced by the Jewish practice, allowed sexual intimacy to take place only one particular sexual style. And it would be the woman laying on her back with the man on top. Now in Mecca, they told us, and it's mentioned in there, that they would basically lay their woman out and they would enjoy her thoroughly, and the wife would also enjoy her husband thoroughly. So now the Meccan man marries this Medinan woman, and he wants to enjoy her thoroughly, and she flips out and says, nope, we don't do that. And I'm not going to allow you to do anything until we first confirm it with the Prophet ﷺ and see, is this allowed? And Allah Azza wa Jal sent down this ayah to address that matter. And the Prophet ﷺ said, from the back, from the front, whatever, so long as it's vaginal. Anal sex is not allowed. And part of what we understand from that is that the only thing that is prohibited in the intimacy of husband and wife thoroughly enjoying each other is anal sex. And there are ahadith that refer to that as being al-liwat or lutiyya. In the sense of it is sodomy. And there's all sorts of different punishments and things that are mentioned in the hereafter with regards to anything of a relationship outside of what Allah Azza wa Jal has made permissible or in addition to it. So after that, what happened? The matter became clear. The wife now understood that husband and wife should enjoy each other thoroughly, so long as that one thing is refrained from. Prepare beforehand. وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. What do you mean prepare beforehand? Well, naturally, before you're going to go to the garden, you have a plan, you have an idea, you have whatever you're going to need of tools of what you're going to do there. You're going to water, you're going to weed, you're going to put your gloves on, you're going to take whatever it is of your tools. But what about the marriage? The preparation is one of, again, the hygiene. washing up, cleaning up, smelling good, looking good, the foreplay, words. And this is also the aspect of ensuring that in the way that you're going to interact with each other throughout the day, that it's consistent to what you're going to expect later on in the night. And there's so much in the Sunnah that talks about these things. Prophet ﷺ had made statements saying, don't any one of you treat his wife in the way that he does a servant during the day, and then expect comfort and intimacy with her at night. But we also understand that the Prophet ﷺ and his wives, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhin, there was affection, there was kindness, there was words, there was kissing, there was petting, there was hugging. And another interesting thing, that when a woman has her cycle, it does not mean that she's completely off limits, because that was another practice of the Jews. In Medina, what the non-Jewish people in Medina had learnt from the Jews there was that when a woman had her cycle, that she was completely avoided. They had kind of like a shed for her, and she would basically stay there, not touch anything, because somehow it was like that it made things impure and so on. But what we learn in Islam is that the Prophet ﷺ would still maintain a level of intimacy with his wives, where we're told is that he would basically have them tighten what they would wear around their waist, so that nothing of the bleeding would be, it would be contained, but that anything and everything else of kissing and touching and hugging and whatnot, all of that is permissible. And this is very important to pay attention to, because sometimes, and unfortunately it's not sometimes, it's a major issue, where the wives are expecting that they have a week off, for example, and that their husband is supposed to within that week just manage. That he's not supposed to have this, he's not supposed to touch, he's not supposed to, in other words, he's supposed to be hungry for that whole week. Let him fast. That's the statement that the sisters will say. Let him fast. What did he do before he got married? Most of us have a hard time remembering what we did last week, forget about how we coped with things before marriage. We got to be honest about this stuff, right? We have to be honest. If the best of people, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is what he did with his wife, and his wives are the best of women, Ridwanullahi alayhin, let none of us think that we are more righteous, or that we are more pure, or that we are better. Wattaqullah, be mindful of Allah Azza wa Jal. Wow, what does taqwallah have to do with regards to this matter? Be mindful of Allah Azza wa Jal with regards to the relationship that you have, and that this is an act of worship, and that you're there to be considerate of each other, and that you're going to maintain the limits of what Allah Azza wa Jal has set, that you're not going to transgress against those limits, that you're not going to abuse each other. But that there's also a sense of the human part of this. I mean, sometimes, look, and this is where men, we have our problems. The wife gets sick, whether she has her cycle or doesn't have her cycle. There's got to be a sense of compassion and understanding. We can't be cavemen, banging our clubs against, who knows what. No, I said it has to be now. Come on, man. We got to get beyond this nonsense of rules and responsibilities and look at things with regards to relationship. Because when it's a relationship, you're eager to want to please. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and give glad tidings to the believers. Yeah, because if they understand what Allah Azza wa Jalla is teaching, of all that this ayah contains of beautiful teachings, then naturally they're going to have that glad tiding from Allah Azza wa Jalla of the happiness and goodness of what this marriage is for us in this life, as well as from Allah Azza wa Jalla of what there are of rewards and blessings in this life and on the day that we stand before Him in the next. It's almost 5 o'clock. I'll conclude. In understanding what marriage should be from the Islamic standpoint, or what sexuality, pardon me, what a correct, healthy, responsible, meaningful sexuality is from Islam, we then understand, and it should be cleared, what isn't, what is un-Islamic. And there are certainly so many different things of what are mentioned with regards to zina, which is fornication and adultery, with regards to in the Quran and Sunnah of those who commit and don't repent and so on, with regards to homosexuality, regardless of whether it be male to male, female to female, or those that are bisexual going with male and female, and whatever else it is of things that are out there. Listen, there's way too much. It is much easier to remain focused on what Allah has given us of what He knows is better for us, to live with the function of what He has intended for us and created us for, and in doing so, really be the recipients, because we don't hurt Allah in the least, nor do we benefit Him in the least, but that we will be the recipients thankful that we did so in this life as well as in the next. And I ask Allah Jalla wa Ala, as I conclude with dua and then open up for more questions and answers, ask Him Jalla wa Ala that whoever is not married, that He help us to prepare for it, that He educate us to understand, that He grant us the emotional and the mental and the spiritual maturity, that He bless us and empower us and enable us and endow us with all that is going to truly help us to be the most blessed spouse that we can to the other. And for those that are married, we ask Him Jalla wa Ala that He bless us regardless of what stage in our marriage to truly be and to be at the level of what we should be, so that our marriages can be as significant, as meaningful as possible. We ask Him Jalla wa Ala for whoever is single and does not want to be single, that He subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them with the best of spouses. And those that are single and don't want to be single, that Allah Azza wa Jal make a way for them, and that He guide us as a community to work together in all that is correct and pleasing to Him subhanahu, regardless of what there may be of social and cultural issues, such that we do the right thing because it is the right thing, and that we stay away from what is wrong because it is wrong. And we ask Him Jalla wa Ala that He keep us all chaste. Allahumma ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So 3 questions.
One at a time if it's okay, inshallah. What, yeah.
Nice stuff. And my 3 questions are a little, because we had an open discussion, so the questions will be a little open, and I really hope they help the brothers inshallah as well. First of all, we talked about the abuse and especially child abuse, and you quoted statistics that even children under 6 are not safe, right? And so, of course, as the child grows, you can always teach them, but how do you teach a child who's under 6? So, for example, if a child is 4 or 5, how do you, these topics are super sensitive. So, 4 and 5 is like, that's like extremely, how do you teach at that age? I mean, like 10, 12 is a different story. But,
Good question. He's asking about how do we, just one at a time inshallah, how do we help children that are younger than, 8, 9, 10 or something, children that are younger than that, to understand so that they can be protected from being taken advantage of. Look, children start talking sometimes before 1 year old, right? So long as communication is there, language is there, that means communication is there. And this is where a child who is 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, their aura for the mother and father is not an aura. Meaning their nakedness is not a nakedness, it's not an issue. But they should still understand that that is, for example, their aura. Whatever word you choose to use, that's fine. But part of it is to help them understand that if, for example, they decide that, kids will do this. Or they'll decide they're going to want to, for example, run around naked in the house. Right? And they're laughing and who knows what. They're playing. They have no sense of sexuality and nakedness. You teach them. And you don't beat them. You don't hit them. You don't do those types of things. But you help them to understand, look, your aura, and you point to the area. You help them understand this is not something that anybody should be seeing. Are they going to get it the first time? Most likely not. But when something is repeated enough, it sinks in. And part of it is that even with regards to siblings, right? Especially where there's going to be brothers that are older, it may be daughters, sisters that are going to be younger. There's got to be this understanding, and this is where the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned that with regards to their bedrooms, separate their bedrooms. When you know and you're paying attention to your kids that your boy is sitting there touching himself and doing these types of things, you got to realize that even before puberty, they're aware of sensation. Girls, the same thing, where sometimes they'll sit and they'll start rubbing and who knows what. They may not be aware of what that entails, but they're aware that there's sensation there. You have to be wise, you have to be vigilant. Separate. And as they get older, you especially want to make sure and clear. You need to help them understand. And part of it is to say to them, no one other than mama should be, for example, seeing this. No one other than mama should be, looking at you without your underwear, or to ever touch you, for example, there. And I'm going to say no one but mama, excluding the babas, because honestly, the majority of the culprits are the men. And some of you may say, yeah, but the fathers don't do this. Listen, play it safe, because with regards to this issue, the majority of the culprits are men. And if your child can understand the father's not supposed to look, is not supposed to touch, then that certainly should be the case with regards to uncles, with regards to brothers, with regards to cousins, with regards to other relatives, and especially with regards to strangers. However the communication is, it needs to be communicated. But here's another issue. We sexualize our children too. Especially in the sense of we want to dress them up and have them look so cute and who knows what of stuff. Our little girls will be dressed in mini skirts. They'll be dressed with tight spandex type panties or pants or whatever. You have sick people out there that you cannot tell just by looking at them that they're disturbed. You do not want to do that to your child. And you especially want to pay attention to who it is that's wanting to show them affection. Let's be honest. When you saw those statistics, that's telling us that the majority of the people are actually relatives and people that know the person. Relatives, family, friends, you can't take chances. Am I saying to be paranoid? I'm not saying to be paranoid, I'm saying to be vigilant. There's a big difference between being paranoid and being vigilant. With regards to even asking your children. Talk to them. Throw some scenarios at them. See. But ultimately, once they have language, communication is possible. And again, of course, you want to be as contextually correct and appropriate in what you're saying and how you're saying and the words that you're using. And we pray that Allah Azza wa Jal help us in this.
So the second question is from the hygiene part, and so I'm pretty sure everyone knew that hair removal is an essential part. But some people go with whole body laser hair removal. What's the ruling on that?
Whole body laser hair removal?
So some people do the complete body hair removal with lasers just so that there's no hair for a whole year or something like that.
I didn't know there was such a thing. It's like a car wash or something. You kind of go through some system. Look, in the areas of what were mentioned, it's okay. In the aspect of, legs, for example, with women too, it's okay. Now, if it is that the woman is going to turn around and say, well, I don't like, the husband having hairy legs, we don't want to make our men effeminate. This is something we have to pay attention to. Where there's clearly text that's talking about the removal of hair, yes. But we do not want to turn our men into women. She has smooth, sexy, hair-free legs. We want him to have smooth, sexy, hair-free legs. She's got no hair on her arms. He's supposed to get the hair removed from his arms. She's got no hair on her front side. He's supposed to be completely, no hair on his front side. Let's be for real. This is why Islamically even, no offense to our brothers who are shaving, but even shaving in Islam is something that is prohibited because it is considered to be an effeminate thing. The man's face is not supposed to be like the woman's face. The facial hair is supposed to be groomed. So if we're talking about the woman in whatever the laser thing, and I don't know, it has to be something that it's safe, because I don't know whether the laser is safe or not. But if it is something that's been around for decades, and it's something that whoever it is of regulatory agencies have said, that laser removal of hair is safe, there's no risk short term, there's no dangers long term, and all it requires is, whatever it is, and they can do this, especially if it's something where they don't have to expose their aura to anyone, perfectly fine.
So the last question is from the marriage part. So of course, even in the Quran it's mentioned
And Allah knows best.
that marriage is a responsibility, and so only if you feel fit, you go ahead with this. And by feeling fit, I mean that you are sure that you can provide for the needs. And by providing with the needs, it's not just about money; it's about time as well, right? And so, for example, I take my case. So, for example, I'm a PhD student, and I am not working full time. I don't have a job, and I'm almost tight on time most of the week as well. And so, I don't see myself fit until I complete my PhD, right? And so, and there are other folks as well. This is not particularly with me. This is a common issue that people go for marriage once they are done with their graduate school or something. And so, in the meantime, of course, and Shaitan can certainly use this as a tool to drive you in the wrong direction. So you easily try to convince yourself that, oh, I'm not doing something sexual. It's just a coworker, and we are just hanging out. It's just Starbucks or something like that. And all of a sudden, you start convincing yourself, oh, this is not too bad. I mean, I'm not even. I'm not. It's not something sexual. It's just random talk. What do you think should you do in such a case? Because should you stop your studies and go do work and marry, or because in religion knowledge is as important as marriage, right? And
So you said a lot. So is there something of a time that says a person has to get married? Because marriage is something that is a huge undertaking. It's perhaps one of the most important things you're going to do in your life. That is something that the person, along with the communication of their parents, they need to have an understanding of that. So if, for example, the young man is perfectly fine, he's not feeling tempted, he's not doing anything bad or wrong, and he can easily go through finishing his bachelor's degree and even go on to graduate studies, and thinks and knows that if they get married, they're not going to have the time and who knows what of stuff, therefore it's best to wait, it's perfectly fine. If the young girl, the same thing, that's perfectly fine. But understand though that there's always going to be consequences to things. But you have to be honest and true to yourself and with regards to the relationship as a whole family. Men, it's okay that they're 30 years old and they decide to get married, because with regards to those testicles, they continue to produce sperm until the day you die. And culturally, there's also the aspect of it's normal for a man to be, quote, older and to get married. But there are biological as well as cultural differences with regards to our girls. So even though the girl may have no temptations, she's so righteous, mashallah, wonderful, she's not doing anything bad. And she decides, you know what, I want to go ahead and finish up graduate studies, and she turns up into her late 20s, maybe into her 30s, because she wants to now establish a career. Well, there's an issue. Because one, the pool of people shrinks as eligible people who are interested with regards to her. And then that age thing is also something, because someone who's going to want to have children, he realizes that that time, that window is getting smaller and smaller. But ultimately, it goes back to the individual and their parents. So long as they are not doing something wrong, that is perfectly fine. But they want to be attentive to what the actual details are and be honest with each other and understand that there's going to be costs with regards to everything, so that in doing so, inshallah azza wa jal, they're not going to go blind into things in such a way that they end up hurting themselves because they're so focused on what they think they're doing and not paying attention to the larger picture and what there may be of ramifications. And Allah knows best.
There was a second part to that question as well. I said that in the process that the marriage gets delayed, right? You're still a human, you still feel affected, right? So you start, Shaitan, it's easy for Shaitan to convince you that, oh, you were just talking to a co-worker there, and it's not this something sexual. So how do you work on that?
Look, my personal, with regards to those who are going through school and they're tempted and they want to finish studies and should they drop out so they can this or what, etc. Look, if and when we're raising righteous, responsible, mature adults, there's no reason why our sons and daughters are not able to marry, whether they're still in college or in graduate studies, to manage their studies as well as their lives, and in doing so that they're growing together. The problem we have is that we still have mothers that are leaving their house to go stay with their sons on campus so that they can continue to baby them, cook for them, clean for them, so that the son can study and become, mashallah, whatever it is that he's going to do. That's not righteous, responsible, mature, such that when they're going to go ahead and get married, that they're going to be able to manage that. Our daughters, just the same thing. Mothers that are going ahead and freezing whatever it is of food and bringing them a week's worth of, and so on and so forth. We have so many gaps and shortcomings. So biologically, we've been ready since 10 years old. But practically speaking, even after they've graduated and maybe finished their bachelor's degree and have good jobs, they're still not making it work in a way that they should. Why? Because the other things of what we focused on that are not there. But if and when a person knows of themselves and parents know of their child And I don't mean by child that their baby, of course, their son, their daughter, that they are responsible, that they are mature. Yes, help them out. I know of certain cases where, subhanAllah, the parent said, son, we are going to support you. We will help you. No problem, you're still going to college, you're finishing up, you can live at home. We're going to help you out as best as you can. And then when you're ready, you go ahead and, alhamdulillah. So those circumstances are something that have to be looked at on an individual basis, family by family. And in doing so, that inshallah, hopefully arrive at what's going to be best, inshallah. Yes? So the awra is two forms. He's asking with regards to the removal of hair in the groin area. The awra is referred to as awra and mughallada. You have that which is more general, and then you have that which is more specific or more severe. The mughallada is that which, if you can think about underwears, regular underwears, not like the boxers or anything else, regular underwears, that area that it covers. That area specifically, yes, it has to be removed. The awra in its general sense is considered to be between the navel, the belly button, and the knees. So in that we're talking about men and women, that is what's considered to be awra. Of course with women, depending on who's what, etc., a little bit different. But so when we're talking about both men and women, both of them need to understand that their groin area, the removal of hair, is something that is for both men and women. Men and women. Now if a person, especially for example in the case of the men, because the women maybe they're already removing hair from their legs, etc., so it's going to be easier, it's going to be who knows what. The men, if you're going to go halfway down your thigh, where your boxer brief normally goes to, your boxer underwears reaches, etc., that's also fine. But al-mughallada, that area where the boxer briefs are, the underwears themselves, that area as a must, yes. Increase that down some more, up some more, so that this way the area itself is all clean, and that's even better. And Allah knows best. Any other questions? Yes? You have to speak up, brother.
When you said your wife gathered, isn't there also a sense of poverty?
Poverty?
No, you said the wives are our garden. Is it not a sense of property? I know he says louder.
Yeah, I said louder, not an interpreter. Inshallah, he could explain himself, just louder, that's all. He explained it well. Alhamdulillah. We're going to call the adhan, and then inshallah, if there's any other, we'll follow back up with you. Go ahead.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
رضيت بالله ربا بالإسلام دينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. So the brother asked the question that the garden, you own it, it's your property. So does that mean that's the same thing with regards to your wife? No, you don't own your wife. We don't own other human beings, even our children, we don't own them. The only thing that there was ownership with was in the sense of slavery, and alhamdulillah, Islam abolishes slavery. It's a relationship, it's not ownership. So that aspect of the garden, we don't own the wife, that part doesn't necessarily transfer over. Good question. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, going thrice. وجزاكم الله خيرا بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.